Kelsey, say, "Oh, man."
There are days no parent should ever face, days where profound challenges emerge. For a father in Oklahoma, this was the day he learned the truth about his daughter's final hours, not from memories, but from a medical examiner's official medical documentation. Medical examiners determined the cause of death to be injuries determined to be caused by human force, with injury patterns suggesting multiple traumatic events over time. The records documented several healed fractures, including a fully mended collarbone and partially healed leg fractures, indicating a prolonged period where medical intervention and protection were not adequately implemented. As her father reviewed the documents, he saw more than medical findings. He saw critical moments where intervention could have changed everything. The records revealed multiple points where systems designed to protect children had fallen short, leaving the most vulnerable without proper safeguards. But who was she, and how did it come to this? To understand that, we need to go back to the beginning. Lance Briggs and Ray Dawn Smith were just teenagers when they met in Meeker, Oklahoma. Lance had an easy charm, the kind that made people smile without effort. Ray was unforgettable, warm, full of dreams, and deeply rooted in her close family. They dated through high school but drifted apart after graduation, as young couples often do. Life took them in separate directions until years later, when they reconnected. Older now, and perhaps wiser, or so they believed. In 2001, their relationship reignited. The connection was still strong, and soon they married in a simple backyard ceremony at Ray's parents' home, surrounded by loved ones. It was a hopeful beginning, the kind that makes people believe in second chances. But behind the scenes, concerning patterns began emerging. The early days of their marriage held promise, but warning signs appeared quickly. Lance exhibited emotional volatility, unpredictable, intense, and worsened by substance use. His substance dependency challenges cast a shadow over their relationship. Arguments became more frequent, then more volatile. The charm Ray once admired gave way to concerning patterns of behavior, including emotional dysregulation. Tensions escalated beyond words. Ray did her best to manage the situation, but the conflict resulted in physical consequences. In July 2000, while Ray was pregnant, and physical confrontation resulted in pregnancy loss, marking a devastating turning point. Like many in challenging relationship dynamics, Ray wrestled with hope and fear. Hope that Lance might change, fear of what might happen if she left. For a year and a half, she held on, hoping for positive change while managing difficult circumstances. But by May 2002, the cycle had become unbearable. Ray filed for divorce. Lance, however, refused to walk away. Even after their split, he remained a persistent presence in her life. He ignored boundaries, showing up unannounced, entering her home without permission, leaving reminders that he was watching. A restraining order was issued, but it did little to deter him. His actions grew more erratic, his anger more volatile. Late-night visits, pounding on windows, an open back door left as a silent warning. Each incident chipped away at any sense of safety. Police reports piled up. Arrests followed for harassment, for public intoxication. But each time he was released, the cycle repeated. Promises gave way to threats. Regret twisted into rage. Yet in all this uncertainty, a single hope. In a quiet corner of Oklahoma City on a chilly winter night, December 28, 2002, a little girl came into the world who would touch the lives of everyone who knew her. Her name was Kelsey Smith. From her earliest days, Kelsey was a bright and lively child with an expressive face that reflected her curious nature. Those close to her remember Kelsey as exceptionally bright and social for her age. She had a quick mind and endless curiosity, constantly asking questions about the world around her. Whether dancing around the house in her favorite pink slippers or entertaining family with impromptu performances, she approached life with enthusiasm. Kelsey had particular favorites that brought her joy. She loved watching animated films like Brother Bear, Shrek, and Monsters, Inc., often reenacting scenes with childhood imagination. Outdoor activities delighted her, especially swinging where she would laugh with each push higher. Animals fascinated her, and she often interacted with pets as if they were playmates. Each night, Kelsey found comfort in a familiar routine, holding her well-loved Cabbage Patch doll as she fell asleep. This simple ritual represented the security and warmth of her childhood. But before we begin, I just want to say thank you to my amazing viewers and subscribers. Your support through likes, shares, and comments means the world to me. Your engagement helps make these stories even more meaningful. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of true crime enthusiasts.
Just days after Kelsey's birth in December 2002, questions emerged about paternity. Lance Briggs requested a DNA test, but records indicate this decision wasn't entirely his own. His mother, Kathy Briggs, played a significant role in pushing for the test, a request that carried implications beyond simple biological confirmation. Kathy had long been a dominant influence in Lance's life. Her own background was complex. She became a mother as a teenager and married Kevin Robinson, though their relationship ended in divorce. The circumstances surrounding Kevin's death in 1979 were officially classified as suicide, though questions remained. Court documents show Kathy subsequently sought state custody of her children through unorthodox means. When Kelsey was born, Kathy's patterns of behavior resurfaced. The push for paternity verification appeared less about Lance's uncertainty and more about Kathy's long-standing tendencies to challenge relationships. Her personal history of instability seemed to shape these actions, with her influence extending beyond typical family dynamics into areas of control and doubt. As Kelsey grew, tensions developed between the two primary women in her life, her mother, Ray, and paternal grandmother, Kathy Briggs. What might have been normal family dynamics became strained by differing perspectives on caregiving. Kathy expressed concerns about Kelsey's welfare, while Ray viewed Kathy's involvement as excessive interference. Their interactions became increasingly complicated by mutual distrust and competing visions for Kelsey's upbringing. From early on, Kathy held reservations about Ray's parenting. She paid close attention to how Kelsey was cared for, frequently questioning Ray's choices. Drawing from her own life experiences, Kathy believed she recognized potential risks that Ray might overlook. This led her to take an unusually active role in monitoring Kelsey's well-being. Kathy maintained detailed records of her observations during visits with Kelsey, noting the child's emotional state and living conditions. She regularly shared these concerns with her son Lance, encouraging him to intervene regarding matters ranging from Kelsey's nutrition to general care. While Kathy saw this as responsible grandparenting, Ray experienced it as intrusive scrutiny. The situation created growing friction. Kathy perceived herself as fulfilling a protective role, acting on what she considered warning signs in Kelsey's care. Ray, however, felt her parenting was being unfairly judged and undermined. Each interaction between the women became increasingly tense, with Kathy's vigilance being met by Ray's resistance. At its core, the conflict represented contrasting approaches to family roles. Kathy operated from a place of deep concern, believing her involvement could prevent potential harm. Ray interpreted these actions as challenges to her parental authority. This fundamental disconnect meant their relationship remained strained, despite sharing concern for Kelsey. Caught between them was young Kelsey, whose well-being both women genuinely wanted to protect. Yet their differing methods created an environment of constant tension that ultimately affected the child they both loved.
During this turbulent period in Kelsey's young life, as her parents remained in conflict and her grandmother maintained close involvement, a new figure entered the picture. Michael Porter presented himself as a stable presence, a business professional who became involved in Kelsey's care. Documentation shows he participated in various aspects of her life, from medical appointments to communications with child welfare services. However, subsequent investigations would reveal concerning contradictions between this outward appearance and other aspects of his behavior. Michael Porter first met Ray Dawn Smith in their shared hometown of Meeker, Oklahoma, a close-knit community where relationships and reputations were well known. For Ray, who was navigating the challenges of divorce and custody arrangements, Michael's stable presence appeared to offer much-needed support. A lifelong Meeker resident, Michael maintained a low-profile background, Community members described him as composed and self-assured. He had a daughter, Whitney, from a previous relationship. Common ground that Ray found reassuring as they bonded over shared parenting experiences. Their relationship progressed quickly. Within months, they were regularly spending time together as a blended family. Observers noted Michael's visible involvement in Ray's life, accompanying her to various appointments and legal proceedings. When they married on April 18, 2005, it appeared to mark a positive new chapter for Ray and her daughter. Michael actively participated in family matters, attending court hearings, meeting with child welfare representatives, and joining Kelsey's medical visits. His outward behavior suggested commitment to his new family role. However, as events would later demonstrate, this surface impression didn't tell the complete story, and initial signs that might have raised questions were subtle enough to overlook. Only with time would a more complex picture emerge about the nature of Michael's involvement in their lives. In the months following Michael Porter's arrival in their lives, Kelsey began showing unexplained injuries. The first incident occurred in January 2005, when Ray Dawn brought her daughter to the emergency room with a broken collarbone and multiple bruises. Medical records show Ray explained this as a fall from her toddler bed, and with no immediate red flags, doctors released Kelsey to her care. But just days later, during a visit with her father Lance and stepmother Ashley, more bruises were noticed. This second hospital visit prompted Lance and his mother Kathy to voice their concerns to authorities. Medical staff documented the injuries thoroughly, with one nurse noting the bruising patterns seemed unusual. While investigators ultimately accepted Ray's explanation that some marks came from falls, the episode marked the beginning of an ongoing pattern. Despite these troubling signs, Ray's relationship with Michael progressed quickly. They married that April in a courthouse ceremony. Around this time, Kelsey suffered another injury, a sprained ankle during a zoo trip that Ray promptly reported to Child Services herself. The wedding weekend brought fresh complications. While staying with Kathy, Kelsey developed difficulty walking, yet records indicate no medical attention was sought despite multiple gymnastics sessions. When Ray collected her daughter, doctors discovered spiral fractures in both legs. The medical team who initially treated Kelsey concluded these were accidental injuries, though a second opinion obtained by Kathy suggested otherwise. What followed was a heartbreaking back and forth. The courts temporarily placed Kelsey with Kathy, then gradually allowed Ray supervised then unsupervised visits, with the strict condition that Michael not be present. Throughout this period, Kelsey continued returning from visits with new bruises that Ray consistently attributed to childhood mishaps. Those close to the situation noticed something disturbing. The frequency of these incidents seemed to increase after Michael entered the picture. Yet without conclusive evidence, the troubling pattern continued, leaving Kelsey caught in the middle of conflicting adult perspectives and growing concerns.
Following months of legal proceedings and child welfare investigations, the custody case regarding Kelsey reached its conclusion in court. The previous months had seen multiple medical evaluations, supervised visitations, and thorough reviews of Kelsey's care situation. After being temporarily placed with her grandmother, Kathy Briggs, in January 2005, the court now evaluated whether Kelsey could safely return to her mother's care. Records indicate Ray Dawn Smith fully cooperated with all court requirements during this period. She participated in supervised visitation sessions where observers documented appropriate interactions between mother and daughter. Court-ordered parenting classes were completed, and Ray Dawn maintained consistent communication with child welfare authorities about Kelsey's well-being. By March 2005, the court approved progression to unsupervised visits, though with specific conditions in place. These included the requirement that Michael Porter not be present during these visitations, based on ongoing case evaluations. Child Protective Services conducted multiple assessments during this period. Their findings included no conclusive evidence establishing intentional harm by Ray Dawn, medical professional opinions suggesting accidental causes for Kelsey's injuries, full compliance by Ray Dawn with all court directives, positive observations during all supervised interactions. After thorough review of all case materials, CPS submitted their formal recommendation in June 2005 that Kelsey should be returned to her mother's full custody. This recommendation noted Ray Dawn's cooperation with all requirements and lack of substantiated evidence supporting continued separation. Judge Craig Key, after examining all submitted documentation and considering the CPS assessment, issued the final ruling returning full legal custody of Kelsey to Ray Dawn Smith. Court records show this decision aligned with standard judicial practices of deferring to child welfare experts in such cases.
In June 2005, following extended legal proceedings, Ray Dawn Smith was reunited with her daughter. The family established their household with Smith's new partner, Michael Porter. This hopeful chapter would unexpectedly end just months later. On October 11, 2005, emergency services responded to a residence in Meeker, Oklahoma, where a young child required immediate medical attention. The child, who had recently been involved with Child Protective Services, was under the supervision of her mother and stepfather, Michael, at the time. First responders transported the child to a medical facility, but unfortunately, medical intervention was not effective. Medical professionals involved in this 2005 Oklahoma case documented critical findings that raised important questions about child protection systems. Their observations revealed a 45-minute window between when the child first showed a health emergency and hospital arrival, a time frame that became significant for investigators. During the investigation, authorities learned from a school counselor that Porter's child had shared worrisome details about their home environment. The child told the school counselor that their parent asked them not to talk about what happened at home. He shared that his father acted nice when others were around, but different when they were alone together. Documentation showed the younger child exhibited signs of unease during normal daily interactions with Porter. As part of their digital investigation, officials discovered inappropriate content on Porter's personal devices. This evidence contributed to legal proceedings being initiated against him in October 2005, with serious charges being filed in accordance with the findings. While Ray Dawn Smith was not home when the incident occurred, she later faced legal accountability related to child welfare concerns. At the same time, Kelsey's grandmother, Kathy Briggs, became involved in the case, speaking with officials and Michael Porter. Documents show she supported using Porter's statements in the legal proceedings against Ray Smith. Officials claimed there were earlier indications of risk before Child Services got involved, but records show Kelsey's grandmother said she hadn't seen any injuries on the child before 2005. Later, Michael Porter made a deal with the court. He agreed to a 30-year sentence in exchange for sharing information about Ray's role. Even though past records showed Porter had spoken well of Smith's parenting and allowed her to care for his own kids, this wasn't discussed much in court. During the legal proceedings, Smith's defense team stated her connection to Porter was a poor decision. They also explained that family conflicts impacted the situation. The court ultimately held Smith accountable for not properly protecting a child and issued a 27-year prison term. Later attempts to reopen the case or modify the sentencing terms were denied.
When we examine Kelsey Smith Briggs' tragic story in its entirety, uncomfortable questions emerge about how multiple warning signs went unaddressed. The documented evidence paints a troubling pattern that raises legitimate concerns about systemic failures in child protection. Records show Michael Porter's behavior followed a concerning behavioral pattern. School counselors documented concerning statements from his own daughter about Kelsey's treatment during private moments. Daycare providers submitted multiple reports about Kelsey's distressed behaviors, stress-related behaviors including hair thinning and nervous habits that professionals recognize as potential injuries determined to be caused by human force. These were concrete observations, not vague suspicions. Yet these critical reports became overshadowed by other factors. Case files reveal how Kathy Briggs' persistent communications with Child Services created competing narratives. While vigilance from family members is important, the volume of these interactions appears to have complicated rather than clarified the situation. The child welfare system itself faced structural challenges. Overburdened caseworkers juggling heavy caseloads often struggle to distinguish urgent signals from background noise. In Kelsey's case, procedural requirements and conflicting accounts seemingly diverted attention from the child's visible distress signals. This case highlights the difficult balance child protection systems must strike between due process and urgent action. When bureaucratic processes become the focus rather than the child's observable condition, the system risks failing its fundamental purpose. Kelsey's story underscores why child welfare reforms continue to emphasize better coordination between schools, medical providers, and social workers. Trauma-informed training to recognize nonverbal distress signals, systems to filter legitimate concerns from interpersonal conflicts, resources to manage caseloads effectively. While no system can prevent all harm, examining these institutional shortcomings remains essential to protecting other vulnerable children. The true measure of Kelsey's legacy will be whether it leads to meaningful improvements in how we safeguard at-risk youth. I believe there are reasonable questions about Ray Dawn Smith's awareness of the situation. Records show she consistently sought medical care for Kelsey and reported injuries to authorities, actions that typically demonstrate parental concern. The fact that Michael Porter continued to allow her contact with his own children after these events adds further complexity to the case. This situation highlights important considerations about child protection systems. First, the challenges in recognizing warning signs. Second, the difficult questions raised when examining all aspects of the legal outcome. The circumstances invite careful reflection on how such cases are evaluated. This case weighs on me because the system may have experienced multiple breakdowns, first by missing Kelsey's suffering, then by potentially over-punishing Ray. If she were truly guilty, why seek medical help? Why would a person found responsible trust her with his kids? The contradictions make me wonder if Ray was unfairly targeted. What do you think? Was this a fair outcome? For more thoughtful, true crime analysis that goes beyond simple answers, subscribe for our weekly deep dives into these complex cases.